Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this presentation, The Case for Internal Auditing. I'm Mike Richmond, your host for Exemplar Global's Online Auditor Expo. This session is presented by Andrew Baines, who is Exemplar Global's President and CEO, along with Adam Maxwell, who is Exemplar Global's Technical Director. Now, it'd take me quite some time to go through the bios for these two gentlemen and all their accomplishments that they've had in their career, so suffice it to say that they are deeply experienced auditors with exceptional insight into the past, present, and future of the conformity assessment industry. And they have expertise on topics such as training, certification, and career development, along many other areas. So in this presentation, Adam and Andrew are going to share the benefits of their wisdom as regards the critically important role of internal auditors. So guys, welcome to the Expo.
Thanks, Mike. You're very kind.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for the introduction. And I'm really excited to have this opportunity to talk about internal auditing. You know, oftentimes over the years, we see the third-party auditors, as we call them, the certification body auditors, if you like, as the glamorous type of auditing that travel around and do these things. But, you know, in reality, the importance of internal auditing really can't be overstated. And perhaps just to illustrate the point, if we look at the number of sites that are certified to the various management system standards that are reported in the ISO survey, the latest one being of 2023, would see that there are 1.3 million sites certified to quality management systems, 500,000 that are certified for environmental management systems, 300,000 for health and safety, and on it goes, 80,000 for ISO 27000 for information security and food safety, and medical devices 53,000. Gives you an indication, because every one of those sites has to have an internal auditor. So there must be hundreds of thousands of people out there doing internal audit. And these are the people that are really at the coalface, making a difference on a daily basis of all those sites that are implementing management systems. So it's great for ones to be able to shine the light on internal auditing as much as it is for either supply chain or external auditing, certification auditing. A critical part of the conformity industry that we all work within. So really pleased to be able to participate in this session today, Mike.
And Adam, what would you say were some of the technical elements of internal auditing you've encountered in your career that make it a little bit different maybe from other types of auditing, second and third party auditing?
It's a very different environment that you're operating in, Mike, even from a non-technical perspective. You're working in an environment where you're surrounded by people that you know and know quite well. And quite often it's difficult simply to balance that perspective of having an independent review of what you're seeing and recording what you're seeing versus the pressures that you may get, the peer pressures, the pressures coming down from senior management, to potentially even look the other way. On some instances, you've got to balance that, do the right thing, do your job, but you also there's an element of self-preservation there sometimes as well that cannot be overlooked. So it's quite a challenging role. And organizations themselves are facing increasing pressures from both internal and external stakeholders, and the organization's desire to get it right. There's that single desire for the organization, if they're going to be successful, to do whatever they do it properly. And quite often, as Andrew mentioned, they'll look towards the internal auditors. And while there's no magic solution for solving all the organization's problems, the internal auditor function really has that overall view of the organization to make sure that it is performing as per its procedures and processes with the relevant management system standard, any regulations that are within that industry, and also the needs of their clients or customers. So it's quite an involved role that has many different aspects. And as I mentioned, the internal auditors are there all year, every year. Quite a distinct function from a third-party auditor that comes in and has a look at it overview and dives deep into some aspects. But it's a very different role from that third party or even second party auditor.
And Adam, to your point, I'm very much of the view that internal auditing is actually the hardest of these disciplines to be able to undertake. I've done both. I guess, like many people, went off and did some auditor training, started off as an internal auditor, and then work your way through into other elements of it. And having done those, you do appreciate, because of those challenges that you're talking about, it's your own company, it's the people you're going to sit down with at lunchtime, it's your own systems that you know. It's a different balance of power base almost than second and third party auditing. And when you do supply chain auditing, second party as we call it, you're the customer. You have an influence on that auditee that you're going there to look at. They want to please you. They want to be able to continue to supply. So there's a balance there where they're listening for what you've got to say. Similarly, with certification auditing, you're independent of the auditee in this case. And again, they want to have the certification. They want to maintain it if they've already got it. They may be looking for improvements and so on. But again, the balance of this is in the auditor's favour, if you like, in many respects. But that internal auditor, they've got to have the lunch with the people. They've got to sit there with their own bosses to tell them what the findings are and what they think they can be doing better. And it's sometimes a lonely place to be. I think you can often find is that the internal auditors can become isolated or feel like they're isolated within their own organisation. They're the internal policeman, if you like, depending on the culture and the attitude of the place. Now, in a really effective management system that's operating, the value of the internal audit is appreciated by management commitment, by the senior management. They're looking for what you can get out of there. And through that, you can be empowered to offer observations on what we're doing here, what we could do better, what can we learn from this. But it's not always the case. And I think we've got to recognise that as the professionalism of internal auditors, that they're dealing with sometimes really quite tricky circumstances. So it's a great point you make, Adam.
Yeah, as I was thinking about this very discussion that we're having, I was reminded very early in my career when I was operations manager within an organisation, and my role, of course, was very simply to make sure that the customer got their products on time in the quantity they wanted. And I was reminded that I had to interact with our internal auditor manager and how steadfast they were in making sure that the quality of the product was always as best as what we could make it, and that unwavering determination to make things right and not release things that could, we may have supplied things, but it may have been subpar if they weren't on top of their game. And, being young, I just wanted to get the product out there. And I'm constantly reminded, reflecting back on that much later in my career now, just how hard that would have been, because the whole organisation was focused in on, can we just get it out there? But they were resolute in what they did. But what they did shield the organisation from was a whole lot of chaos that may have ensued after that. So I've got complete respect for that function and the decisions that they made, albeit much later in the piece.
Well, Adam, it's a longer time since I was young than it is from you being young. But I similarly had some insights from those very early days. I remember in the organisation I worked for, we had a boss who had a great deal of foresight and sent me off to do an auditor training course. And then back I came to start doing internal audits. And I was thinking, we don't have position descriptions, we don't have work instructions, we don't have internal audits. How am I going to do this? And it was actually observing that gentleman who was my boss at the time. And he used to walk around the site every day. He used to walk around every morning and he'd see what was going on. And if something was not right, he'd make you put it right. And the penny dropped for me, realising that he was actually doing an internal audit anyway, whether that by or any other name. the point of the internal audit is to see that what you're doing in practice is what you intend to do. And so in that respect, you are just undertaking a degree of assurance to the organisation that what's happening in practice is the things that they intend to happen, that your product's being produced in the way it is and so on. And you work into that from a positive perspective. And for my money, it always lent a preferable approach to it, is that you're doing something constructive and positive. You're not there to find fault for finding fault's sake. And this is the interpersonal skill and indeed communication skill that all auditors should work on acquiring. And as you get more experience, you can bring a lot of your experience to bear and make it a constructive exercise. But thinking of it in your own mindset as a positive exercise, I think has always helped me anyway.
Yeah, and that the BOSC was quite visionary in that respect, because that was a while ago. Even if I joke myself, but I think there's a term for that, MBWA, or managed by walking around, right? That's an accepted technique these days, and has been for a long time. And even if you cast your mind out of the management systems, the standard management systems, and start thinking about lean and that type of thing, you've got Gemba Walk as well, which is ticking that box as well. So very visionary. Mike, you were going to say something before.
Well, I was going to talk a little bit about kind of the hard and the soft skills, because you both have alluded to it, and we talked a lot about this these soft skills, because really this idea that you need to be need to have a certain strength in your own convictions and maybe a personality type where you can be a co-worker of the team, and yet also understand that your job as an internal auditor is to go out and to discover how the system is working. Because really, if you don't have the inner strength to stand up for what is right and the right behaviors, that the organization is going to suffer from that. So that's a really important idea, that you need to have the right, I guess you can call it soft skill, but the right kind of almost personality type to deal with an internal audit.
Yes, I think that's absolutely right. And it applies to any auditing, whether you are first, second or third party, internal auditor, supply chain or a certification type audit. Communication skills are essential for it. An ability to listen to what people are telling you, reading both at the line and between the lines, gathering information and evidence, putting it in the context of an organisation and what they're trying to achieve, I think is also important. And then being able to convey that back in a summary form, granularity where required, supported by objective evidence, all of those good things. But there's a way of doing it that can be antagonistic or threatening or condescending, all of those adverse terms, or it can be done constructively. And I think working with people, the auditees, the people on the shop floor that you're talking to, right the way through to the management team, or if depending on the nature of the organisation, it could even be up at the most senior levels, then being able to appreciate things from their perspective as well, and what's important and why it's good for them. I think you've got to be able to put yourself in that position. As Adam mentioned before, there are also a diverse range of stakeholders involved. Sometimes it's regulators, sometimes it's shareholders, sometimes it's people from different disciplines. Like we could be doing these days, you could be doing integrated audits. You could be looking at it from a quality and environmental and a health and safety perspective. So again, different drivers at play. So it's a real skill, and it's a real profession to be able to hone your skills in. And I would also suggest that we should recognise that nobody's going to be totally skilled in these the first time out, but it's something that you can work at. You can polish your professional skills as you do more of it, and you can build those skills around. It's a lot tougher in these days than it was back when I was starting there, with only really quality and for my interest in food safety as well. But these days, there's many things that are at play.
hearkening back to the earlier days of your respective careers, you both mentioned that internal audits were something that you had an experience with in the earlier part of your career, as I mentioned. And I think that's not uncommon. I think there's certainly plenty of people that maybe are quality managers or environmental managers, what have you, in their organizations who do internal auditing throughout their career. But there are some folks who kind of begin to understand what conformity assessment, the conformity assessment industry is all about, really through the prism of internal auditing first. So from that perspective, what would you gentlemen say about what the internal auditing skills can give you as you begin to build and grow into your career? What kind of a foundational skill set does that give you that you find are really important wherever you end up going?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and certainly we can start from the technical understanding of a standard. That's often what you learn when you go on an auditor training course, and you also learn about open and closed questions and so on, and you learn about writing non-conformances, and you learn about opening and closing meetings. It's some of those hard skills you start with, building those softer skills into them, where it takes time and practice in one way or another. I think there's a lot to be learned from observing your peers, observing others that do audits, going out with those that are more experienced and seeing how they achieve what they're achieving. So that observation of colleagues, perhaps if you are fortunate enough to be doing this in a team environment, and trying things out, see what works and see what doesn't work. Be willing to reflect on your own performance to be able to build things, to go and find out, to do some take some self-responsibility for learning other things out there as well. Understanding the industry that you're auditing. In an internal auditor case, it's your own organisation, so usually you do at least have that advantage of knowing pretty intimately what's going on in the organisation. And you probably also have some insights into what the real issues are with the place because you're immersed in it. You know what people are saying. You know what it's like on, I often refer to a wet Tuesday morning, what really happens. And you've got that insight. Now, that works in both ways, but assimilating all of your observations of things and what your knowledge is what you can start to bring to bear with this without jumping to conclusions other than what you're seeing in practice as well. What's your thoughts, Adam?
Yeah, as you were just rattling off that list, Andrew, I was thinking and also reflecting that it's very important to understand the why of you doing it as well. So, and when you're communicating the findings of the outcome of your audit, it's always good to put it in the context of this is what I found and why is this important? Why is this important? What risks or opportunities have we identified that could have a meaningful impact one way or the other on the organisation's achievement of its objectives or its goals or its strategic plan? All those things. When you start talking about the why something is important, you tend to bridge that gap of being a policeman, which is probably not the right context. You don't want to be seen necessarily as a policeman, but you want to be seen as someone who's positively impacting the future capabilities of the organisation. So if you communicate your findings in the reasons why, I found this, it's important because of these reasons, and these are the potential things. That's quite often the better way that I found, at least in my career, to present those sometimes potentially negative findings. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that matter.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because really, regardless of what type of an auditor you are within a management system standard conformity assessment process, you the goal is to have an outcome that makes the organization better. I mean, whether you are a third-party auditor, second-party auditor, first-party auditor, what have you, the process isn't to get the cert on the wall, as they say. I mean, that's an outcome of conforming and showing that you're doing what the organization should be doing. But that happens if the organization is doing what it should be doing, and auditing is a really important core function to help, I hate to use the word enforce, but help to lead the organization to that outcome.
If I could just add to that too, one of the things that I found particularly useful, again, in my early days, was to understand the purpose of an organization. And if I could use a commercial organization, I grew up in the UK and started in the UK, and we had something called the Companies Act, which was about how a company was supposed to operate. This is recognizing that the point of the organization is to create wealth for the shareholder or for the owner or whatever it is. Its purpose is to make a profit, basically. Now that sets a scene for what's going on and the decisions that are often made in practical terms. And whilst you may not necessarily succumb to that in every aspect, it's worth understanding that that's why the company's there and being able to put a context around it. And so being able to spend a bit of time understanding what the motivations for an organisation, not all of them are commercial, of course, there are not-for-profits, there are regulatory ones, there are all sorts of different ones. I used to do audits of a council, a city council, and they had a whole range of different purposes. They did, everything from the zoo and the swimming pools and the library to the crematorium to the dog pound and the parking meters. There was an immense set of things there, but understanding what their objective in life is, I think is worth bringing to bear to your audit as well.
And it's all process-based. I mean, that's the thing. When you really look at any organization, especially a complex organization, it breaks down to a series of processes that ideally will be standardized, and everyone in the organization will know the import of those processes and how they fit, and hopefully, if they're in that area, how to do them. And that's a big part of this of what auditing will hopefully get to as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Mike. You're talking about competence of the internal staff to do the things that they need to do. That also extends to the competence of the internal auditor team.
Mm-hmm.
The management system standards.
Sorry, Adam. I was just going to say, isn't this something that makes it such an exciting profession to be part of your career? Is you get an exposure to so many parts of the organisation, or indeed many organisations that you get to audit that most others don't get to see. Again, if you use quality as an example of this, you see things from contract management through to the operational aspects of it, to the logistics side of it, to personnel management, to the technical aspects of things like calibration and so on. Who else gets this exposure to it? Who else can assimilate learning from all of that to be able to enhance your own skills? And that's where all the different experiences build up over time that allow you to really contribute something back, is having seen so many things in so many different places, so many examples of them, and ultimately what the commonality of many of the things are as well, because ultimately these things, were almost regardless of what you're doing, are all about people. It's about people doing things. It's about people undertaking their work and making decisions and so on. And the industry that you're looking at could be highly diverse, from a service one to a manufacturing one to a small to a large, but there's still people at the heart of it.
Yep. That's an excellent point. Excellent point, Andrew. And I think that, in that vein, as I think about it, as we come kind of towards the end of this session, we, as an Exemplar Global, not to have too much of a commercial here, but we've developed redeveloped an internal auditor certification for people, for individuals that hopefully will give folks an opportunity to have a certification in their career that really demonstrates the value of that function. And I think that we've thought about it for a while. We've had an internal auditor certification for a while, but this is a different approach to it. We've redesigned it, and I think that it's certainly many people on the session now will probably have seen it. We've been talking about it a bit on social media and email. But certainly we encourage people who are interested in this, I think, to check it out, because I think it's a valuable part of the career journey for people to consider, perhaps if it fits, a certification for internal auditing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, again, worth emphasising that this is a profession. in every bit as much as it is for anybody that's doing it for a certification body. You can be a professional internal auditor. You pick up those skills that are there. We would encourage the ongoing professional development, keeping abreast of what's going on within the sector, within your industry, with your audit skills, extending them out to other standards or whatever else might be at play. And that's what we wanted to do here, was to recognise this as a profession just as much as the other auditors that we serve.
Yeah, and in the development of that revamped certification program, and it is exactly what you say. We want to elevate the expertise, recognise the commitment that these internal auditors make towards helping the organisation that they work for achieve the organisational objectives. And we also need to recognise that those internal auditors have considerable skills, expertise, and professionalism. And they work behind the scenes, day in, day out, to assist that organisation. So it's only fitting that we have a certification program that recognises these considerable skills that are quite unique to that particular role and separate from that of a third-party auditor. So it's important that we have a robust scheme in their own right. So I'm happy that we're getting
make
there.
a closing point too, Mike, that think when I was starting out with this, one of the things I thought was that auditing, any auditing, internal auditing in this case, is a really good background for anybody that wishes to move a career into even general management, because of that exposure that you get, because of that ability to balance sometimes opposing forces on a situation, to be able to understand the context. I think people who have got auditing as part of their portfolio of experience are really well placed to be the leaders of the future because of that ability to be able to contextualize what you're seeing.
Absolutely. I think that's an excellent point. And I think that, we really did a good job there, I think, with the overview of what internal auditing really is and can be for the future of this industry, present and future. So guys, thank you so much. Again, that was Andrew and Adam here on the Exemplar Global team. Really good job, guys. Really appreciate it. We appreciate all of you being here for this session as well. As the slide says, be sure to claim your CPD for this session and the other sessions we have for you here at the Expo. We have over a dozen different sessions for you, so check them all out. Get your CPD for those sessions as well. And don't forget, you probably have already seen it in your email, but we have a live session for you coming up at the end of the Expo. So keep your eye out for that one. That'll be a live opportunity to interact with several of our different presenters, where you can ask questions about their presentations live, and you can get answers directly from our expert presenters. So again, thank you all for being here. Andrew and Adam, thanks for being here as well. And
Thank you.
My pleasure. And we'll see you all next time at the next session here at the Exemplar Global's Online Auditor Expo.